This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, Real MVPs, Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
Dummies.
And Mark, I know it's only been 2 weeks. I know that you were only gone last week when you were in Austin, but I feel like I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
I feel like it's only like that, though, because we had the onside kick last week, which Brandon was on. We had the phoner with me and you before, which was true. I forgot we had a phoner the week before. So really, I haven't seen you in studio in 3 weeks. And then we had the entire NFL draft first round, which Sean and Dave filled in for. So I feel like we've done a lot of onside kicks, and I just haven't seen your face. Before we get into everything, though, how was Austin?
It was nice. It's a cool place.
It was nice. I'm taking a drink right now, so I can't talk about it.
No, I mean, it's a cool place. It's a weird place. They like to brag about being weird. And
then hook 'em horns.
It's an interesting... Yeah, I was there. I went to it. I saw the tower that's there, which is...
There's a tower?
Oh, there's a tower. There's a lot of stories behind that tower.
First, you're telling me about a Philly cheesesteak place under a bridge in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
now you're telling me about this tower in Austin?
Well, the tower is it's a very well-known part of that campus. But also, the other thing that I'll mention... because I don't want to do a ton of talking about this city, although it was very fun. I definitely recommend it. Is I got to pet a bat,
like an actual, like
a real bat. Yeah, a real bat, a little tiny bat. I got to pet it. It was cool.
Was it furry? Was it
it's very fuzzy.
Leathery or
no? It's very fuzzy. If you ever touched like a baby chick, that's what I keep thinking of. It was very fuzzy. It just stared at me as I pet it.
Well, it was like, cool. Why is this man petting me?
It was staring at me. It was kind of into it. I don't know.
Well, glad to have you back on the podcast. And, of course, we got to talk NFL draft. We got to recap the draft. So we did our entire first round. You can catch that podcast on our YouTube page, on our podcast services around the world, iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, everywhere there's podcasts.
If you got a 4-hour car ride, we got the podcast for you.
We do. We do have the podcast for you. Actually, funny thing, too, Avengers Endgame, there was a part of it, the segment that went up today for the Rick and Johnny podcast, I was like, Johnny, we're going to do that separately instead of doing it with the review. If we would have done it with the review, that Endgame review would have been 3 hours long.
Still haven't seen it.
So the review would have been just as long as the movie.
I meant to...
If we did them
I
together.
knew that it wasn't going to work, but I told my wife, I was like, hey, check and see if there's any tickets for Endgame this weekend. And it wasn't.
Yeah, they were all sold out. They were having basically round-the-clock showings at some theaters from Thursday until Sunday.
Got to watch Game of Thrones. It works.
Eventually, you'll go and see. My aunt texted me today. She waits until the Tuesday matinee because, retired old people.
Go for it.
She'll just go to the cheap matinees on a Tuesday for retired people, and she went and saw it today and fucking loved it. But we're talking NFL draft today. Some numerous topics. Winners and losers like we always do. Biggest steals of the draft. We're going to look at the Josh Rosen trade because that had not happened when we did the first round podcast last week. And then we're going to dive into Dwayne Haskins and Daniel Jones because Mark was not here to talk about those. We're kind of going to compare the two to see who has or who will have the better career in that NFC East division. Before we get into everything, though, make sure to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. That's where you can help support us. Every dollar this year is going towards our new studio. We've officially decided this is a 10 by 12 room that we're in, and it's basically a box. So we want to branch out, get a new studio so we can do more things, have more space to make great videos and podcasts for you guys each and every day and each and every week. So that link down below in the description. But Mark, let's start off winners and losers. Like we usually do the podcast after the draft. And this segment is kind of a loosey-goosey segment where it's not like rigid, here's our winners, here's our losers. We kind of mention what we want. Here's a winner, here's a loser. So I'm going to kick it off to you.
Cool.
You can start wherever you want.
I'm starting with a winner.
If you want to start winner, go winner. If you want to start loser, go
start
loser.
Positive.
Who's your first team you want to talk about?
First team I want to talk about is the Washington Redskins.
Okay.
Because to me, the Washington Redskins got the dumbest luck in the world.
I know, right?
In getting the third quarterback who many people would say is the best quarterback in the draft in Dwayne Haskins. They luck into him. They didn't have to trade up. They didn't have to do anything. He just fell to him. They got to grab him. And apparently, according to Gettleman of the Giants, that the Washington Redskins totally would have drafted Daniel Jones if they had the chance. That's why you had to get him 6.
Apparently, there were 2 teams that really wanted Daniel Jones before 17.
Yeah, apparently Washington had to have been one of them because I don't know who else it would have been.
The Bengals,
but,
maybe?
That's a good one. But then even the one I love, too, is getting Montez Sweat. And going for one of the better pass rushers available.
I can't believe he fell out of the top 20. And technically the top 25.
And for the Washington Redskins to basically say, we're going to go make this move. Like, we have to go do that. I got to give them some credit for that because we kind of made fun of them because there was rumors that the Washington Redskins were going to trade up for a quarterback, and we were making fun of them for that because of the RG3 trade and how much they gave up for that last time. But to be willing to trade up for a good pass rusher, I really like that move for Washington. A Washington team that, you know, they were pretty good for a little bit last year, but they
until their quarterback broke his leg,
and then another quarterback did.
Yeah.
They need that kind of jolt, and I really like what Dwayne Haskins can be for them. Of these guys, I mean, Kyler Murray's athletic, so he's going to be like a pretty decent force to be reckoned with day one. Daniel Jones isn't going to play for a year or two. Drew Lock's got at least a year. I know he's not a first-round guy, but Drew Lock's got at least a year. Dwayne Haskins is a guy who comes in day one and starts. There's no question that he's your starter.
Now, the thing I'm looking at, and if you're the Washington Redskins, I think it's a pretty good trade-off here. The thing that I look at, so they gave up, in order to make this pick, the 46th overall pick, which was a second-rounder this year, and then I believe a second-rounder also next year for 2020. And the thing I find humorous, because I was like, oh, the trade is almost over. We got next year's pick for like, okay, these are the 2 players that you gave up for Montez Sweat. But this year, in my mind, I think it's an even trade where the pick that was made at 46 was not Indianapolis, who they made the trade with. It was Cleveland, and Cleveland took Greedy Williams at 46.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those are 2 players that I know I had them both in my top 10. I know Montez Sweat was top 5 for me, but Greedy Williams was a guy I've consistently had in my top 10, and he falls all the way to 46. So, like, the Redskins, you didn't give up. Like, even if you would have taken Greedy Williams at 46, I think you're getting a similar player to what you got in Montez Sweat at 26 to make the trade.
Yeah, for sure. And it's nice about it, too, because you've got this really talented player. You've got a good player for yourself. And when I look at the Washington Redskins, they're going to need it. Because you think about those quarterbacks, a guy like Carson Wentz out there, the whole world is shaking right now with Daniel Jones entering the NFL. You know, there is a lot to be reckoned with.
We're going to get to Haskins and Jones definitely later.
And I forgot about I'm not forgetting about Dak Prescott. He's there too.
We're shaking in our boots.
Right?
Shaking.
But they need something. But you know what I love about this Redskins team, though, too, is kind of youngish Carson Wentz, kind of youngish Dak Prescott. Soon, Daniel Jones. This whole kind of division has reset their quarterbacks. And Washington's got to compete.
Dak Prescott's the oldest guy in the room now for the NFC East.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean,
is it him or Carson Wentz? I
thought Carson was older.
Carson's older?
I thought so.
I mean, maybe it's just because
they were the same draft, right?
I'm looking that up right now.
But also, I mean, to be honest, Eli Manning's the oldest quarterback in the room.
Well, he's Daniel Jones.
He's grandpa.
Is the future.
Yeah, I mean,
Daniel Jones is the future.
Eli is grandpa in the room. But yeah, beyond that.
So let's see. Carson Wentz was 2016. He was the 2016 NFL draft. He is 26 years old. Whereas Dak Prescott, was
he 2017 then?
He was the 2016 draft.
Oh, he was 16
Yeah, they
too.
were
Okay.
the same draft. So they are. So Wentz is a year older than Prescott. Prescott 25. Wentz 26. But they were both 2016.
Which would
draft.
make sense. I mean, because Carson Wentz, he's in a what was that, D3 school?
Yeah.
He had to stay for 4 years.
Well,
he was
he was FCS.
FCS.
Yeah, so the football championship series instead of the bowl series.
Yeah. Which I like to call the fake college.
The fake colleges.
Fake college schools.
Well, hey, they've had a playoff for the longest time.
Yeah.
Before the actual FBS went to the playoff system.
Playoff.
Yeah. You know what else? The playoff, because it's not really a playoff. It's still rigged in general. You know what other pick I like for the Redskins, though? Bryce Love.
Yeah.
Like, this is a team that, yes, I know they still have Chris Thompson. They still have Adrian Peterson, who are kind of the older guys in the room. But this is a team, remember, we talked last year around this time about them getting a steal in Darius Geis.
Loved it.
Didn't play this year because he tore his ACL, I believe, during the preseason. They also have Samaje Perine, who was a really good running back at Oklahoma. So now they have 3 young running backs to potentially take over. Bryce Love will probably need the year to kind of rehab because he's getting over some injuries as well. But, like, they're kind of building a young running back by committee team to also help themselves with their new quarterback. So I can't help but agree with you that the Redskins had themselves a pretty good draft. Also, Kevin Harmon, I can't wait to see what he does. I know he's a 6th-round wide receiver, but in a couple years we'll see if he amounts to anything. I really liked him out of NC State. I'm actually going to go to the other conference, and I'll match you, winner for winner. The New England Patriots, to me, knocked this draft out of the freaking ballpark. Like, I look at their top 4 picks, in my mind, hits in every area. They get a possession wide receiver. Yeah, I know he's had some drop issues, but I feel like he's going to be a good wide receiver at the next level. They get N'Keal Harry at the very end of the first round, last pick of day 1. They get Joejuan Williams out of Vanderbilt, who, if you looked analytic and you looked at the Roto World Top 300 that Dave and I were talking about weeks before the draft, he was actually ranked the top cornerback in this year's draft when you looked at the analytics. So technically, analytically, they get the top cornerback in round 2. They get a guy from Michigan that I felt fits their team 110% in Chase Winovich from Michigan. And then with their 4th overall pick in the 3rd round, they get Damian Harris, running back out of Alabama, to kind of be that contrarian running back to Sony Michel moving forward. And then they also get Jarrett Stidham in the 4th round, who I thought was either going to be a Patriot or an Eagle after this draft. The Eagles going Clayton Thorson in that regards. But what do you think of the Patriots draft? Because this, to me, if you asked me best draft class, it would be hard for me to maybe find a draft class that could top the Patriots just off of their first based off of their top 4 picks in general.
Yeah, I really like their picks for sure. And they got a Cajuiced in there, which everybody loves. Cajuiced. Pretty sure he's not related. But anyways, I'm not really crazy about Stidham just because we hype up the backup to the Patriots all the time, and they turn out to usually be nothing. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to those first few picks, I think they did great. N'Keal Harry, personally, I think that...
Because you had him in your first round the longest out of either of us.
I think that he was undervalued in the draft. I really do. I think he was, and wide receivers in this draft went a little bit late anyways. But yeah, he's going to be able to do great things with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I mean, we think about guys like Chris Hogan, who was this guy? All of a sudden, a amazing player because of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. N'Keal Harry, who's already a great player, is going to turn into potentially, I'll even go out and say it, one of the best, like the next best wide receivers in the NFL. I mean, because he's in an amazing situation and he's already a great player.
He's got Tom Brady to make him better.
Exactly.
Like, as long as he can catch and hang on to the football, like, that's the one thing that you really got to do. With Tom Brady, the only question...
But Tom Brady's the kind of guy who's going to drill into you.
And he's going to make you better. And he's going to be the one... It's kind of like what... Oh, shoot. With the interview I watched, was it Brissett? I think it was Jacoby Brissett who was talking about the quarterback room. And I thought it was either him or Ryan Mallett. It was one of them. It was Brian Hoyer. That's who it was. Said he came in, and they're in the quarterback room with Josh McDaniels, and McDaniels asks him a question about the film they're watching. And before he could answer, Tom Brady answers it. And he's like, the first thought that went through my head was, hey, could you let me fucking answer the question? Like, he asked me, not you. And Josh McDaniels went, that's what you got to be like. You got to be that quick with the answer, because it's like Tom Brady just knew these answers. And, of course, we're talking about the GOAT here. But I feel like he's going to make N'Keal Harry better. The only question I have, and this is the only negative that I think I can put on the Patriots, but I just don't think a good one fell to them, because like my team, the Minnesota Vikings, took Irv Smith in the second round. Is it bad that they didn't get a tight end out of this draft class if they're the Patriots because of Gronk?
I'm not really that worried about it, because here's the thing. Getting N'Keal Harry in the third round, you get Damian Harris as well, great running back, to back up who you just last year drafted a running back as well. The team's going to be okay without a tight end, and they can make other tight ends into good tight ends. Not Gronkowski, but I was actually happy to see the Patriots not draft a tight end, because everyone was talking about how, they're going to go get a tight end right away. They're going to trade up for a tight end. It's like, why? Why do the Patriots need to do that? No, the Patriots just need to be the Patriots, draft the best player that's available, and be an amazing team like they always are.
No, instead they traded up for, I think it was Joe Juan Williams.
Yeah.
It was either him or, was it? It was one of their third rounders. It was either Winovich or Damian Harris. They actually traded up for him, which was kind of interesting. Usually we're used to, hey, we're going to trade back and accumulate picks, which this year seemed to be the Seahawks and Colts kind of going at each other of who could trade back the furthest to accumulate picks. And that's another one I'll just mention that I want to put in as a winner, only because of they turned 4 picks into a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They made 11 selections in this year's draft. I just want to throw some loves at the Seahawks, because we mentioned, and I mentioned coming into the draft, they were going to have to wheel and deal because they only had 4 selections heading into this draft, and they made 11.
But I do feel at the same time, taking a lot of players is great, but they have to be good players. I mean, I don't want to look at it and just say, wow, they drafted a lot of guys. That's awesome. If it's not the right kind of guys. I mean, I look at something like DK Metcalf, and I sit there and I'm like, first of all, good. I'm glad he fell, because I don't think that he was worth anywhere near as much as people wanted to mock him. I mean, even as much as I mocked him, but it was just kind of a consensus that he was a number 1 wide receiver for some reason.
Because the underwear Olympics.
Pretty much. And if anyone actually looked at it, they know this is going to be a bad wide receiver, because he can't run routes.
Yeah, I don't know
if you want him to go that way,
bad wide receiver, but
if you want to do anything else, he can't do it.
I will say I do agree with you that maybe the combine boosted him higher than he should have been.
Way higher than he should have been.
Don't know if he's going to be that bad, though, at the next level.
Name 2 routes that he can run. You can't. He can only run 1.
A fly route. That's all he needs to do.
That's all he can do.
Fly route, jump up and catch the ball. That's
Which,
all
you know
need
what,
him to do.
to an extent for the Seahawks kind of works, because Russell Wilson will just run all over the place without anyone ever being able to touch him, and then just, hey, all right, we'll sling it. By now you've had time to go all the way to the other end of the field.
Yeah.
So here you go. Here's the ball.
Who's another team that you either like or didn't like?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the didn't like situation.
Okay.
It's time to get to this team that needs to be talked about. And it's a team that is still suffering from decisions that they have made. And that's, of course, the Oakland Raiders.
Okay.
They're still suffering from the trade with Khalil Mack, and also for wide receiver Crabtree. They're still kind of suffering from these and saying we need to do something. And it couldn't be any more apparent when they get who I've always said Clelin Ferrell, but when they said it on the draft, it was much different than that.
Yeah.
They were saying like Clelin Ferrell, and I was like, oh, I think I've been saying that name wrong the whole time.
It's Clelin Ferrell.
But anyways, it just like this guy is not even the 5th best defensive end in this draft, and you're drafting him 4th overall.
Yeah.
You could have gotten so many other, and like I sit there and I say, yeah, but some of their big needs are like tight end, like an offensive guard, a linebacker. Maybe that wasn't the right spot to do it. But honestly, 4 wasn't the right spot to do it. And I look at Josh Jacobs, which is a great running back. I'm not mad at you for taking Josh Jacobs, but I get really good running backs that went in the 3rd round, and it's like, maybe it would have been okay waiting.
Which the Bears got. They got
a really good running back.
Pass-catching running back in college, had a bad combine, and that's the only reason he fell, in my mind, as far as he did.
Totally. And, the Bears have been fortunate of that multiple times. I mean, Eddie Jackson was a guy who should have went in the 1st round, got hurt.
Which now I see a tweet. Apparently, you guys are calling your running back stable.
DMC.
Run DMC. Because, who is it? It's Cohen, Montgomery.
Davis.
And then Davis, who you got from, he used to be a Seahawk. Because I saw Christian, one of our fans, retweeted it and said that the Bears have to redo the graphic after Montgomery and Davis are in Bear uniforms.
Yeah.
And not in a Iowa State and a Seahawk uniform.
Oh, well, I just liked the Run DMC picture that they use and just Photoshop the faces on. I think it was Mike Davis that said, damn, you guys are fast for that, how quickly that changed. But I just look at the Raiders, and to me, they were a team that they have a lot of needs, so I mean, it is hard to go wrong. But I feel like they really jumped on the need and not the value. They could have gotten some really good players
Which is
earlier on, and I don't think that they've got okay enough players. It's just that they could have done better.
Well, it's just the weirdest thing for me is the fact that, I mean, Mike Mayock, the biggest smokescreen of the draft in my mind, because I read the quote on the podcast when we did the mock draft, and I also read it again when Brandon and I did it before the draft on draft week, of how Mike Mayock was big on hey, we've got a lot of coaches in the room, and it's great to look at need, but, there's some times where you got to look at the BPA over the overall need. And I felt like they threw that out the window and just went with, okay, who's the guy that we like at each of these positions, and let's hit a huge need.
Yeah.
The Clelin Ferrell one, I'm not as negative on that one pick as many people, because at least it's a pass rusher.
It
at
is,
least
but it was the 5th best one, and there was still 3 better that were available.
Yeah, but I mean, with at least that one I could justify... I could justify that you went with a need. Now, if it was Daniel Jones, which I thought, when I saw a surprise pick the week of the draft, I thought it was going to be Daniel Jones. And I said on the podcast that I was ready to roast them in our after live stream podcast because I thought it was going to be a horrible pick. It wasn't the worst. Was it the best? Could they have traded back and got Cullen Farrell there? You're absolutely right.
They would have gotten him at probably 27.
To me, it's the exactly. To me, it's the other two, to where Josh Jacobs, I feel like they could have got at 8, and Abrams, I feel like Abrams to me is the weird one because you only had 1 second-round pick, you didn't have a third-round pick, and you would probably have to make a deal to get him. Josh Jacobs,
but once again, I don't even think that was the best safety in the draft.
I mean, Deonta Thompson went, in the third?
Which was
5th round or something?
No, it wasn't that low. But it was shocking to me that he was falling as much as he was. I think it was the 3rd round.
He fell, most of the safeties were falling. I
mean, even at 27, even if you were going with your next type of needs, like an offensive lineman or something like that. I think that when you're talking about these needs, how they tried to address needs, I think that would have been a much more pressing need for your team.
Because you had Nasir Adderley went 28th overall. He was highly rated. Tyler Rapp 29th. You had Amani Hooker, which people liked. He went the 2nd round. Oh, no, pardon me. Those picks were in the 2nd. So Adderley and Rapp went 28, 29 in the 2nd. Deonta Thompson went, first pick of the 5th round. He went to the Arizona Cardinals.
Think it was that far back.
Yeah, he went to the Arizona Cardinals. So you could have gotten guys well later at that safety position even the Packers, I'll say, probably reached on Darnell Savage. Now,
for sure,
if it's a guy you like and think he's going to pan out, like,
great.
That's the thing with it, too. It's like, if he's a guy you like, go ahead and take him. But if the more you reach on someone, the more he doesn't pan out, the more the pick looks terrible.
I mean,
obviously.
If Daniel Jones becomes the greatest quarterback of all time, we all look like idiots, and we're all laughing about it. I mean, it's the same thing with Tom Brady. We laugh at teams. How did every team pass up on Tom Brady like 6 times? It just happens, and if it's the best player, you got to go for it. But you just sit there and you think, sometimes with these teams, as it stands right now, they might know so much more than we know. But the odds are maybe it is in fact a reach. Maybe they could have had a better player.
Now, the thing I will say is with the Trayvon McMullen thing, the thing I will say looking back, that one is kind of a little different of like I would have taken that pick. I would have flipped the Josh Jacobs and the Mullen pick. The only reason why, and I'm not saying take Mullen in the first round. I'm saying I would have taken Josh Jacobs with the 8th overall pick in the second and taken a different corner with that 24th overall pick. The reason why, you had DeAndre Baker go 30th overall. Giants traded up for him. You had Byron Murphy go pick 1 of the second round. You had Rock Yassin go 2nd pick of the second round.
You had
Budding out of Central Michigan.
Could have gotten Greedy Williams.
Exactly. You could have got Joe John Williams. You could have got Greedy Williams. You could have gotten Julian Love, who I really liked from the cornerbacks there. But you could have had your pick of the litter of cornerback at 25. And when you looked at it, running back, the next running back after Josh Jacobs didn't go until the 21st pick of the second round when the Eagles picked up Miles Sanders out of Penn State. So it's like a lot of those teams ahead of you in the second round were thinking cornerback, to where I almost feel like, and of course hindsight's 2020, I almost look at it and go, the Raiders should have looked running back and Josh Jacobs at the second round pick and looked for cornerback at that 21st round pick and gone maybe all defense in that first round.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just just not a big fan. Not a big fan.
I'm going to throw... See, because with me, I've got a lot of teams that I really liked what a lot of teams did in this draft. There weren't many teams that I was like, wow, this is a really bad draft. But the one I'm going to throw out there, and I might get some flack for this, and I don't even know if I want to say this, but I'm going to say it anyways. I'm almost going to say loser for the Minnesota Vikings, but I think it's more on the fact of I'm not as excited about my Viking draft. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I feel like it wasn't necessarily that they were losers. It was just kind of underwhelming.
I really liked our first 2 picks. I love Garrett Bradbury. We needed an offensive lineman.
We sure did.
And center is a position of need for us. And plus, Jonah Williams wasn't on the board there, the guy I had mocked to us numerous times late down the stretch. Then getting Irv Smith in the second was great. Like, Kyle Rudolph is a guy where I know there's some reports of, like, now the Vikings may look to trade him, but even if not, and we can't lock him up long term, if Kyle Rudolph does walk, we at least have a guy like Irv Smith Jr. who could take over. But, like, the rest of the Viking draft, I feel like, and that's why I might go more into that, I'm just not excited for it. Like, it doesn't rock my socks, the guys that we picked up. It's just a lot of guys that I feel like they're either going to be wait a couple years and they might become something on this team, and it might be like, oh man, remember that guy? Didn't think he would pan out. Or just a lot of like just bodies for this team.
Feels
to
like
use
bodies
as depth.
to me. And you know what? That's a big thing for the Vikings, is the simple fact that they are a team that is well put together. They are a team that didn't have very many needs. So you can kind of afford to do that. You know what? Let's just get some bodies. Let's get some special teamers. Let's just fill out the rest of the roster with depth. We can take all these stabs in round 6 and 7. What was it, like 8 picks that you guys had back then?
We had 3 in round 6 and 4 in round 7.
Yeah, so you had 7 picks in the last 2 rounds.
And
you just take all these
guys.
stabs and just say, hey, one of these guys might be good. We'll find out what happens.
Who's another one that you either like or don't like?
The only other team I really kind of want to make sure to give some attention to, because I mean, there's certain things I'm going to talk about in the next.
The
next
Steelers one.
It's not that they are a true loser, because I like their first 2 picks. I just look at it and say I don't think this team really helps themselves. Is the Carolina Panthers.
I like the quarterback they picked up with Will Grier.
I'll get to it. I like Brian Burns. I really like Greg Little. But I look at this team and I say, Will Grier, sure, that's nice, but you're basically, he's not going to really get to do anything. I mean, unless Cam gets hurt again, and Cam is already kind of hurt right now, but he's not having sex, and it's making him feel a lot better. So I think Cam's going to come back sooner rather than later.
Didn't Russell Wilson say something about that too?
Russell Wilson didn't have sex with Sierra before marriage. Is
That's
what
right.
I thought it
That's
was.
what it was. And everyone was like, "Well, that's what made him such a great quarterback. He wasn't having sex with Sierra."
Right? Hey, it works. Just ask Thad Castle. But I look at this team and I say,
and all the oil changes.
Yeah, right. You desperately need a wide receiver. You didn't take one to the 7th. Greg Olsen is basically done forever now, and you're not going to go get yourself a tight end either. I just look at it and I say, I feel like there are more important things that the Carolina Panthers could have done to help their team out more. You know, I look at their team last year and I look at it now, and even though, like I said, like Brian Burns, but their defense was already good. I like Greg Little. They did actually, need some line help on the offensive line. But I just don't really feel like they made themselves better. And it's not that they're true losers. It's just I look at it and say, like I said, I don't think they're that much better right now.
And the reason why, with me, I'll say I like their first 2 picks, although the Greg Little one could have been seen as a little reach. But when you get out of that first round, the reaches we don't magnify the reaches as much.
Yeah.
In the second day, third day, especially third day reaches. Third day
There's
is
no
like
such thing as a third day reach.
Anybody you fucking like in the 4th and later rounds, go ahead.
If you want a
take
punter in the 4th round, go for it.
Basically. But the Will Grier, the thing I love most about him is I feel like all the intangibles are there, and he's a guy that has that leadership quality.
Sure, but he's not going to get to play.
But he doesn't have to. That's the thing. In my mind, he was never a day 1 guy. He was never a year 1 guy. He was a guy that needs 2 to 3 years. And guess what? Cam Newton has 2 years left on his contract.
They're not going to get rid of Cam Newton for Will Grier.
No. I'm not saying get rid of after this contract he's done. But like you said, Cam's hurt. What if he's hurt? And it's like end of the contract. Well, we could either re-sign a hurt Cam Newton, or we can roll with Will
To be
Grier.
honest,
I feel like he's an insurance policy to where, at worst, he's a guy like Kirk Cousins, where he develops into something. Hey, this guy's a starter caliber guy, but we've already got Cam Newton still. Let's look to trade him. And at best, he's a guy that could take over if they have to move on from
I really
Cam
think
Newton
you're
in 2
overvaluing
years.
Will Grier. And he does have pieces in place, but he's barely ever going to get a chance to do anything with him. By the time, if they move on from Cam Newton because of injury, they'll probably just draft somebody. Because if he gets
Also
injured,
depends
it's
on
probably
how high they are injured.
Well, I was going to say, if he gets injured, it's probably because going to result in them being high in the draft. They'll get to just do that. I really just don't see too much of Will Grier happening. He's just going to be your traditional, look at a guy like Barkley, look at a guy like Mallett. Look at these guys who are really hyped up in college, and then they get there, they get drafted in later rounds, and we never hear from or see them again.
Yeah, there's a side of me that could see that, but to me, maybe I'm looking at the positive of what I want to see with Will Grier. Another team, there's 2 teams potentially I want to throw out really quick just to give them some love. The first one's the Denver Broncos. This is a team that they didn't have a ton of picks. They only had 6 total picks. But man, did they rocket on at least 4 of them in my mind. They move back in the first round. They say, you know what, we're not going to draft at number 10 because...
They didn't need to.
Well, in my mind, the trade at number 10 told us they were looking at TJ Hockenson. And once he went to the Jaguars, it was like, you know what, we're going to trade the pick. So they trade the pick, although there were rumors that they liked Devin Bush. They move back to 20. They get Noah Fant. Good. You still get that tight end that you wanted. Then in the second round, what do? Number 9, you rock it out of the park. You get a first-round type of running back in Dalton Reisner that you can use to protect your quarterback. Great.
Yeah.
Then what do? You trade up to the next pick after you make that one, and you get a guy, in my mind, who could have went top 10. And I'm not saying he's top 10 caliber. I'm saying could have went in the top 10.
Daniel Jones got drafted at 6. Anybody could have gone in the top 10.
True. I'm saying maybe he deserved to go in the top 10 more so than Daniel Jones. I will say that. On my last NFL big board, where did I have him? I had him, technically I had him as a top 10 prospect. I am as the 9th ranked prospect in this year's draft, just above Dwayne Haskins. So almost tied for second quarterback.
There are so many better
off
players
the board
than Drew Lock in the draft.
And when they got Drew Lock in that second round, I was like, that's a good pick. Because Joe Flacco's not going to be there forever. Flacco, Brandon even said, he goes, I don't even think Joe Flacco plays this whole year. I'm not on that route. I think Joe Flacco will play the whole year. But Drew Lock could be the next quarterback for the Denver Broncos. And then after that, they get Dre'Mont Jones to add to that defense.
You know how I know Drew Lock is a bad quarterback?
Why?
Got drafted by John Elway.
But he's not a first-round quarterback.
Doesn't matter.
Drafted by John Elway.
Would you call Trevor Siemian a good quarterback, drafted in the 7th round by John Elway?
But Trevor Siemian, I knew wasn't a good quarterback. That's the thing.
But he was still their starting quarterback week 1.
And I knew I watched enough games of him when he was at Northwestern to know he's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. So that one's a little bit different. The Paxton Lynch one, I was on the Paxton Lynch train. I got mesmerized.
You sure
by
did.
the Memphis
Well,
tape.
because he's a magician.
He was a magician in Memphis, and then in the NFL didn't know what to do. I am positive about Drew Lock. Is he a guy that starts day one? No. Is he a guy that starts year one for me? No. I think he takes a year,
they wanted
maybe
Alex
2,
Smith, Patrick Mahomes him.
basically. And I think he could be the next starter. I'm not saying he's going to be amazing for the Broncos, but could be their next starting quarterback moving forward, to where I really like what they did. And then the last team I want to throw a little bit of love at is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I absolutely love what they did with their, especially just first 2 picks of number 1, going out there, getting Josh Allen. Well, basically getting Josh Allen handed to them at number 7, because you had the Raiders went Clelin Ferrell, where it's like, okay, that's going to bring him down. Then you had the Giants go with Daniel Jones, which is like, okay, that's going to bring him down.
Yeah.
And they basically made the easiest pick of the top 10. But then also getting the guy that I believe they truly wanted at number 7, getting him with the 3rd pick in the 2nd round of Juwan Taylor, to where you get another pass rush for this defense and an offensive tackle to help protect Nick Foles in his first year in a Jaguar uniform.
Yeah, I love that. And I even love 3rd round getting Josh Oliver. You get a nice tight end there. Help out Nick Foles even more, because Nick Foles needs help. It's really what it comes down to on that team. That offense is, I know it was probably the best place for him to go, but that offense is not equipped to really make that run. And we got to see health with running backs and everything like that. But Jacksonville Jaguars did a pretty good job. But it's really easy when you have guys like Josh Allen and Juwan Taylor just fall into your lap.
The last thing I'm going to ask you is, because we kind of mentioned mine, I want to get your thoughts on yours.
Yeah.
You don't have to call him a winner, don't have to call him a loser. I just want to know your thoughts. Bears draft this year. Do you like it, not like it, kind of in the middle?
For what the Bears had to work with, I think they did a fantastic job. I think in the ideal situation, if you really look at these players and what they're capable of and what I hope some of them are going to do in this next year, I don't think you would really realize that the Bears didn't have a 1st or 2nd round pick. David Montgomery is going to be an immediate, very useful player to the offense. It's not like he's a 3-down running back, but he's going to very much help this offense, give some change of pace.
He's going to be the pass catcher out of the backfield.
I mean,
because you also
potentially,
got Tariq Cohen.
But the man, he can also run. He can run between your tackles, but he's also a good kind of
Outside?
Yeah, kind of a little bit more outside, which was something we stopped doing with Jordan Howard. Riley Ridley, that's an awesome one. He's not Calvin Ridley, but he's a good, useful weapon. He doesn't have to be because he's like wide receiver 5 on the roster. Duke Shelley, I know people keep telling me I should be excited about him, but I'm just a little, I don't know, Big 12 cornerback. I don't know about that. And then Kenneth White, I am just like, that was just kind of a luxury pick, I feel like, from Pace to say, look what I can do.
Now, I got a dumb question.
Yeah.
Is it just me, or have I seen Valdosta State from the Bears before? That's not where Baby Gronk is from, is it?
I don't remember where he was from.
Because I saw that and I was like, is that like one of those small schools that the Bears?
Well,
like
there's
that Ryan
always
Pace
a small
falls in love with?
Yeah, he always goes for a small school kind of guy, and he really loves Georgia players as well. And I can only really speak on this because it's my team, but I'm not gonna. I'll pay attention to the draft for other teams, but I'm not going to pay attention to undrafted free agents for other teams. But the Bears did a really good job with undrafted free agents too, to give themselves. They now have like 8 kickers available. They have about 10 wide receivers all competing for a spot on the roster.
After the 49ers said, no, we are not trading Robbie Gould. Get back, Chicago.
I don't think Chicago really tried to trade. I think Chicago just called and said, you really don't want the hassle, right? I mean, come on.
We'll take him back.
Play. We'll take him off your hands. Just cut him. But yeah, I mean, the Bears definitely.
Shaheen went from Ashland. That's where it was from.
Yeah. I think that the Bears did a great job with what they had. It was kind of the Bears can't really be a winner because, I mean, it's not like, you had the number 1 running back fall all the way to the 3rd round.
Yeah, I just, at the end, just wanted to get yours because the Riley Ridley one is the one I'm looking at of how that pans out because he was probably the one wide receiver that I was not super high on in this draft class, but I mean 4th round wide receiver.
They're basically hoping that he can replace Taylor Gabriel when his contract runs up, is my assumption.
Yeah, and you're going to get, obviously, a few years of him to develop because he's not going to be a guy that's exactly, boom, right away, expect him to be one of the top receivers. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know your winners and losers for the NFL draft down below in the comment section. What teams did you like their drafts? What teams didn't you like their drafts? Let us know what you're thinking down below.